So everybody, welcome to the 2024 HR Compliance for Colorado Employers webinar. I am Gina. I'm your host. I lead brand and client marketing for ProService Hawaii, which is actually a sister company to Obsidian HR. And here we've also got Donna Jones. And in fact, we've got a really great lineup of things that Donna's going to walk you through. Before I introduce her today, just so that you all are aware, note that this is being recorded and the recording will be shared with you in an email after this webinar session. And, you know, as you get questions, feel free to drop them in the Q&A section of this chat here. There's also this, you know, everyone public chat. So feel free to drop your comments and thoughts, feedback, and your Q&A in the Q&A section. All right, we'll move on to the next slide there. Today, we are going to cover all of these check boxes: equal pay for equal work, family and medical leave insurance programs, Job Application Fairness Act, minimum wage updates, and final rules, the hot topic for IC versus EE. And so with that, I'd like to introduce Donna. Oh, I guess this is my little quick introduction.
Introduce you.
It's me. So as I mentioned, I did live in Colorado for 4 to 5 years or so, worked there, lived there, even had one, my second child was birthed there. So Colorado is very close to my home, or it's in my heart. And now I'm in Hawaii. And I'm working with an Obsidian sister company. Donna, all right, you've got 20 years of human resource experience in PEO, 30 plus years overall. This is where you and I have a common denominator. We just switched places pretty much, because you were in Hawaii and now you're in Colorado, and then
Yep.
I just switched with you.
Yep. I came home. Colorado's home for me.
That's
Yeah.
awesome. All right. And you love supporting employers of varying sizes and industries. And you know what? That's what you and I have in common as well. Okay. Well, moving right in, Donna, go ahead and take us right into Equal Pay for Equal Work Act.
All right. Sounds good. Thank you. And as you guys are asking your questions, I just want to make a quick note that we will stop at the end of each section to see if there's questions about that. I have Julie helping to answer their questions. So she'll be doing her best to get those answered as we're going along. And then anything that's not answered directly, we'll do verbally. All right. Make that a little bit quicker. We have a large group on today, which is awesome. Very excited to have all of you join us. And, you know, as I said a minute ago, that really a lot of what we're going to cover today is overview. And you're like, well, when you look at that agenda, you're like, there's not a lot of new things here, but there's a little bit new information in relating to each of these areas. And that's why we chose them. So starting with equal pay, of course, you know, this is a Colorado specific law, right? So although many states throughout the United States are, you know, beautiful country here, have similar laws. So really what it does is it looks at that, you know, potential discriminatory acts in relationship to pay. And so it went into effect in 2021. It really looks at, and the intent behind it is to offer equal pay for equal work, right? So people that are doing substantially similar situational work, that they're being paid in a similar manner. From the very get-go, it really did help us to enhance our job descriptions, the job postings, a lot of requirements under job postings that I'm sure you're all familiar with, and then looking at promotional opportunities. So throughout the last few years, they added things here and there, and now we are really at our final changes. Okay, as I said that, I thought to myself, well, final for now. So hopefully final changes. When there is pay disparity, these are the acceptable reasons for that, justifiable reasons to have different pay to people that are in similar situations. So again, none of this has changed. We're familiar with that, but let's focus on what are the recent updates. There were some amendments that were passed in June of 2023, and the rules were finalized. Okay, and again, finalized for now, becoming effective January 1st. One of the things that they looked at was remote employees. And they said that, there's an exception for employers that are physically outside of Colorado, an exception, and this is in regards to job postings and such, that if you only have remote employees and you have 15 or less employees working in Colorado, then you're only provided to provide notice of remote job opportunities, not every potential promotion or opportunity. So it's really focusing on the positions that these individuals might be interested in, right? If you have a physical location plus the remote, then your remote employees only need to be told of remote opportunities. So that was one of their first changes. They also did some clarification around that career development and that developmental progression, your career path, basically. And they said that if the promotion is something, and I'm sorry, let me start that over. They redefined what is a job opportunity that would require notification to all of the employees. And it specifically carves out that career development or career progression as being something that is considered a job opportunity, and therefore employers are not required to post information about an inline promotional situation. So if an individual meets the criteria to be promoted to the next level, they've been in that position for X number of months, they have met certain KPIs and things similar to that, and they are now eligible to be in that position, then it is part of that career pathing, and you're not required to post that opportunity to all employees. It's kind of a big change because it was a questionable thing that we said, oh, this is a promotion, but we know who's going to get it, right? So that was great. Now, the career development, there was also a change in regards to that. And they said that a career development is a change in that employee's compensation or their duties to reflect that their existing work or contributions. So it now clarifies that existing work or contributions must be part of that employee's existing job and not within a position with a current or anticipated vacancy. So when we're talking about career progression, the employer must disclose the requirements and the compensation, all of those things that are part of the career pathing to anyone that is considered to be an eligible employee. And those that would progress to another position if the requirements were met. So that's really confusing, and I apologize for that, but that's kind of the verbiage that they're using in regards to that. So is it an in-path development, something that they're automatically going to be eligible for? Or is it something that other people could also, meeting the criteria, could also be eligible for that promotion? Could be a group of people that are eligible versus one person. The next thing is talk about is those acting interns and temporary positions. They have said that you don't have to post those when they are, an interim, and they have now given that a little bit more definition, saying that if the opportunity is for up to 9 months, okay? So it's not expected to be permanent, and a same or similar situation or a similar position was not held for 7 or more of the past 12 months. The application window just really talks about, previously they said you have to post to everyone any promotional opportunity prior to making a decision. And I thought that wording was really kind of unusual, but now they're saying if you have this window when you're accepting applications, you need to let the employees know when does that window end. So not just prior to making a decision, but you have to let employees know that they need to apply by set a set date. Now, we all know that if you don't get enough applications, that date's gonna extend. But you need to be, giving them that reasonable expectation of when they can expect the window to close, right? The last information I want to share in this section has to do with ensuring that the employees that are going to work with the candidate that was chosen are given information about that candidate. So employers are required to disclose information about the candidate for the position in which the employees are going to work with and work regularly with. They're defining that as like monthly. They're going to work with them monthly. Then you need to share with them their name and their former and new job title and any sort of information that would be helpful for the employees to determine whether or not they'll be eligible for a similar position in the future. Yep, 30 days. You have 30 days after making that decision to let everyone know. And one of these key points in the changes here is that they have extended the statute of limitations for any sort of claims about pay being unequal from 3 years. It's now going to be 6 years. This will substantially impact employers that have risk towards unfair pay practices. Back wages can now go back 6 years instead of just 3. Covered that pretty quickly. Any particular questions in regards to that?
We had one question from Carla. It was a clarifying question. If there is a group of people that are eligible, do you have to announce that? And Julie did respond. Yes, that is correct.
Perfect. Very good. Thank you. And I do apologize, you guys. I feel like we need to get through this fairly quickly to make sure that we have time to cover all the questions as well. So I feel like I'm talking really fast, but a lot to get through today.
We do have one question that just came up from
Okay.
Janessa. Can you touch on when you have to let employees know about job opportunities?
Yeah, so the job opportunities should be shared with everyone when there is an opportunity for some sort of promotion. So additional pay, different tasks that are of a higher level, better compensation again, or better benefits. So the job postings have to include all of that information. And when somebody will view that as a promotional opportunity, then it has to be shared with everyone. Okay. So not just the people that you think might be interested, but it has to be actually shared with everyone. And then let's see, for the application window, can you start interviewing and possibly make a selection before closing the window? As a best practice, I would recommend that you not do that because you don't know if you have a better candidate that's still applying. So once you have enough candidates that you feel that you have, a good pool, that you're going to be able to find the right person, then you can close that window. But then you need to re-notify those employees. If you said, hey, we're closing this window, say on, February 10th, and it's now February 2nd, and you think that you have enough candidates, you should notify everyone that we have enough candidates. We're planning to close that on the 3rd instead of the 10th. So still allowing them time to apply, but I'm sorry, I'm seeing a lot of questions come through and it's distracting me. Sorry about that. But allowing them time to apply, and then notifying them that the window's closing early. And I think one of the questions was, can we just say that until we have enough applicants? And I believe that the requirement is to provide the date, the window that you are expecting to have this open. Yeah. So yes, there are requirements. It says, all right, so I'm sorry, looking at the questions here. Is it imperative to share the compensation? Yes. All job postings, including the internal, must include your pay range, the salary range that you're expecting to pay. The salary range, again, must be in good faith. That is what you intend to pay. Even if you end up paying a little higher or lower than that range, it must be a good faith range for what you expect to pay. You also have to include benefits, and for the internal posting, any additional benefits that are not currently being provided. Okay. Specifics around what does it mean to let people know? Yes, you have to include in the posting the job, the pay range, the benefits, all the things that you would do in an external posting should really be included in your internal postings. It has to be done in a way in which all employees are going to get that information. So if you have an intranet, or you have a message board, or you have a direct messaging system, any of those would work on how you communicate to all the employees. You can also do like a mass email to the entire organization. That would also work. And again, it's generally to ensure that everyone gets this information at the same time and has an opportunity to apply. So say you have, there are prerequisites for that position. You have to tell everyone, but you don't have to interview everyone that applies. You only, you would need to notify those people if they don't meet the prerequisites of the job. Okay. Yeah, so clarification on, if we have a hiring for a senior position, that's correct. All the employees need to be told that you're hiring for a senior position, and that how they would need to apply for that. Yeah. Okay. All right. I'm going to move forward. If there's any other questions, as I said before, Julie will be answering those as well. And anything that's not answered at the end, Gina, if you can help me keep track of that, and we'll answer them verbally. Perfect.
Yeah.
Thank you. So moving on to this, to family. Again, family's not new, right? But what is new is that employees can now apply for benefits. So the first couple of slides here on family, which is family and medical leave insurance, right? Leave Act insurance program, which is state run unless you have applied and are utilizing a private plan. So beginning in 2021, they started funding this program and making deductions from the employees' paychecks, provided that you were not considered to be a small employer. Then the employer also had to match those deductions. So those funds started going into the state so that they could fund the program starting here on January 1st of 2024. And any employee that has earned $2,500 in the state of Colorado, whether it's with the current employer or someone else, they're eligible to apply for this. There is no waiting period as long as that wage has been met, wage requirement. Now, the thing to know is about job protection. So once you have hired an employee, like you can hire someone and they have met that wage requirement at a previous employer. So they might take family leave. They're not going to have job protection until they have worked for you for 180 days. So they're still allowed to take that leave, but it may be that you're not able to keep that position for them. After the 180 days of employment, that's when their job is now protected, and you have to adhere to that. So no retaliation for taking the leave. You cannot terminate someone just for taking that time. And I'm sorry, I keep getting distracted by questions. So let me just try and get through this, and then I'll go back to the questions. All right. There are 5 reasons that an individual could take family leave. Again, these reasons have not changed. Just wanted to have them written out here for all of you. And as a reminder, we will send you a copy of today's presentation, so you'll have that as reference moving forward. So generally, family applies for 12 weeks. If someone is having pregnancy complications, there's a potential of adding 4 additional weeks. And their wage replacement benefit is set at 90% of their pre-leave wage, weekly wage. And that's up to that maximum of 1,100 a week. So employees that even earn, say somebody earns 2,000 a week, the state program is not going to pay more than 1,100 per week, right? If you have a private plan, then your private plan has to be equal to or more generous than what the state program requires. So if you had a private plan and you wanted to pay a little more than 90%, you are allowed to do that, but you're not allowed to, at any point in time, pay less than the 90% unless the employee has met that weekly maximum of 1,100, right? So coordinating family with other benefits is something that has become somewhat of a quagmire. Trying to think of the right word here. It is a mess to try and coordinate. So family says that employee cannot receive more than 100% of their regular wage. So when you are marrying that with other benefits, we have to make sure that we're being really clear so that they don't receive more than they're allowed. Now, workers' comp does not, family does not cover any leave for workers' comp purposes. So if somebody is hurt on the job and they're needing to take time off, they are not going to get family benefits for that own injury. They may be able to take it, but there would need to be other reason for taking it other than the workers' comp injury. Unemployment, same thing. Unemployment would not cover while they're on family. Unemployment readily says ready, willing, and able to work. And so they're not able to work if they're on family. If they're unable to work, then they're not going to get that. Employer provided paid leave programs. Here at Obsidian, we have a lot of our clients that have paid leave programs. So what we're doing is that very carefully looking at what's the difference between what family will provide and what the company needs to provide, and ensuring that not more than that is being paid. If anything more than that is being paid, then there needs to be an adjustment. Or if it's less than that, whatever that benefit covers, generally, what we're hearing from a lot of our clients is that we want to top off their family benefit, wage replacement benefit, to make that employee whole. So they would receive 100%. And that's going to be using the online calculator. We'll get to that in just a sec, to determine what is going to be that person's benefit and then how much should the company pay to make up the difference. Sick pay, you can require, not require, but you can allow employees to use their sick pay to, again, top off those wages for wage replacement. You can't mandate the use of sick or PTO, but you can actually allow it. Short-term disability, long-term disability. This is where some real coordination comes into play, because you need to work with that provider to ensure that on both sides, that employee is not receiving more than 100%. Now, the state has said under family that short-term disability benefit would pay first, and then the individual needs to notify them how much are they receiving, and then the state will adjust their pay, the amount of benefits they're providing, to ensure that the employee does not receive more than 100%. Okay. FMLA is intended to run concurrently with family. So they should be running at the same time. Basically, those 5 reasons that we talked about are FMLA approved reasons to take family as well. So they would run at the same time, but you do need to notify employees of that. And there is a little bit of overlap here for 2024 in that family does allow bonding time with for an employee, a new parent, to have bonding within the first 12 months. So once the child turns 1 year old, then they are no longer able to, take bonding time. But if that child was born, let's just say in June of 2023, then the parent, certainly if it was the mother, they probably took some time off at the time of birth. And now they're eligible to take an additional 12 weeks. Okay. Okay. So let me, again, I just saw a question here, but I'm going to get through the rest of these slides before we get to the questions on my end. So January 1st, 2024, employees are now able to apply for benefits. They apply online. They, kind of have instructions here. They're going to just apply. There is a process that they go through. The state will notify the employer and that person has applied. They will notify you when they are approved. The state has said that they are working on getting approved benefits onto the website so that you can go into the website and see who was approved and how much are their weekly benefits. My understanding is that is not quite ready yet. It will be ready this first quarter, but likely to be in February, potentially even March. I think that there's been a lot of folks actually applying, so perhaps a little bit more than they had anticipated. And I'm sorry, what else was I going to say here? When your employee goes on family, they have the ability to take it up to 30 days prior to the disability start, or 30 days after the leave, or that, has started, that potential start date. That does leave us a, potential gap with FMLA, because you cannot require them to apply for family, and they have 30 days. So they could go out on a FMLA protected leave reason, and you give them the FMLA paperwork, they start that clock, and then they wait perhaps even 4 weeks. So not quite the 30 days, but 4 weeks of the 12 for FMLA to apply for family. Once they've applied for family, then they would have the 12 weeks again. So potentially some overlap there. It's been unclear to me. I haven't gotten a clear answer on whether or not family will retroactive that to the start of the leave. If they do, then those two will run concurrently with no problems. If they don't, then there's potentially an additional 4 weeks that is, covered by FMLA at the beginning and under family at the end. And of course, I am considering that since they're on FMLA, they have been employed for at least a year, and therefore that family protection does apply. All right, so I think that's everything that I have for that. We can look at questions, and not sure where.
Yeah, let's take Janessa's question here. It's directed to the hosts and panelists. If you all can actually drop all your questions in the Q&A section, that would help us we're looking in 2 different window panes right now, but all good. I'm going to go ahead and grab Janessa's here. What about if the child has adopted at 5 years old? They have 1 year still, right?
So an adoption, the bonding with the child, I think that the bonding is at that, foster, foster placement, adoption of the child. So yes, 1 year from that event. That, I believe that's correct. Yes.
Great. And here's another question from Janessa as well. When you say it can run concurrently, can you clarify what that means? Can they take up to 24 plus possible 4 weeks altogether, or does it run at the same time? So there's only 12 weeks plus possible 4.
Yeah, great question, because I tell you, I always get concurrent and consecutive mixed up. So, concurrent means at the same time. Consecutive would be one and then the other. So by running them at the same time concurrently, we are limiting the total amount of time that somebody can be away. Now, the reasons for taking both leaves are really are very similar. Now, and I think I saw a question about, well, what if they don't qualify for FMLA? Then they don't qualify. Then you would, if the company qualifies, but the employee doesn't qualify, you still want to make sure that you're getting them the right forms and paperwork. But if the company doesn't qualify, then there's no need to, run those consecutive or anything else, or I'm sorry, concurrent or anything else. Then you just want to be clear to the employee that it's not covered by FMLA, that the company doesn't qualify or they don't qualify, and so they are on family leave. And what does that mean?
So I think you answered Carla's question, what if they don't meet the FMLA qualifications? And then Veronica's asking, did you say FMLA and FMLI run concurrent or on top of it?
Yep, they run at the same time. Yep.
Okay, great. Looking in Q&A chat here, Caitlin is asking, will we have access to FMLI portals, or will only Obsidian have access like unemployment?
No, FMLA, I'm sorry, family. I'm just going to call it family. It's easier for me to distinguish between the two since they're so similar. Family is each individual company has their own account. So different than Obsidian with the unemployment account. So great question, Ken. So you would be able to access that. If you do not have login information or you need that, let us know. We can help you provide that. And that, of course, is for our current clients that we are working with on family. The employee is going to go in and set up their own account if they are applying for family benefits. So that's not something the company does. The employee has to go in and do that on their own.
Okay. Caitlin is asking, how are we notified that they have a family claim? And if it's approved by Colorado, do employers have to present employees with any family paperwork when they request leave? To clarify, we can mandate they use PTO for FMLA, but not for family.
So that is correct. You can mandate PTO for FMLA, but not for family. There is no paperwork. The state has not provided, forms like FMLA has. Just notify them that they need to go onto the website to apply. Once they have applied, the company, the person that is considered to be the contact person, which all of Obsidian's clients had individuals as the contacts. So you would receive an email from family saying that, Donna Jones has applied for family benefits. And once they apply, then the state's going to start interacting with them to get medical verification or any other documentation to show that the leave really is legitimate. And then they're supposed to notify you once it's been approved as well. Now, with this being so new, we haven't seen the full process happening yet. But that's what we have been told, and I have seen parts of it happening. Yeah.
Great. Okay. Lauren is asking, is family based on the pay an employee is currently making at the time of leave, or what they were making the year prior based on what they were paid in?
Yeah. So it looks at what's your current rate of pay. So, if they received a merit increase or even an increase based on, minimum wage increases and all those things, it would be based on the current pay. So what were they making when they went on leave?
Great. We've got a lot of questions here in Q&A,
Yes.
and I know,
So
Donna, you still want to move on through the rest of what you have to cover.
Yes, absolutely. And Julie and the other folks that are assisting will continue to do those questions. If we don't get to all the questions, we can create a document after the fact, after the webinar, and respond to that and get that to everyone. So you guys have that information, okay? We can commit to that. All right, next one is it's a new law, Job Application Fairness Act. This actually will prohibit employers from asking for information regarding to age. So, and it takes effect July 1st of 2024. So now we're getting to be a little bit proactive on this particular new law. You're going to have to look at your applications. Does the application ask for the date of birth? It's got to be removed. Does it ask for when they graduated from college? Those years have to be removed. Have to go back to things like, did you graduate? Okay, yes or no, and not when did you graduate. So anything that relates to how old that applicant is, or then we're going to have to remove those from that selection process, the application process, all of that. Now, there is an exception, and that is, of course, a BFLQ. So when there is a bona fide reason that you need to have this information, and off the top of my head, I think about bartenders. Bartenders have to be 21 years old to serve alcohol, I believe is the law. I have to actually add that, because my understanding that you can be younger to serve, but you have to be 21 to actually be a bartender. So in that process, you would ask the individual, you have to be 21 to be a bartender. Are you of that age? You have to be 18 to be, to perform these duties. And this is things that are required by law. You can verify that age verbally, but you wouldn't want to say, show me proof. That comes after you've hired them, then they're going to have to provide that documentation. Okay. And that's all I really have on that one, other than the penalties. As any good law, there's penalties. So with the first offense, the Department of Labor will give you a warning, and the warning says you need to comply within 15 days. So say, for instance, you haven't changed your application and it's still asking for information that relates to birth or to age. And so they'll send you the warning. You have 15 days to make those changes. If you don't comply, or there's a second violation, then now they're going to start fining you $1,000. Then third violation on that is going to go up to $2,500. Okay. Any questions in regards to asking people about age? All right, minimum wage updates. I think we all know that Colorado minimum wage exempt employees now have to be 5,500. Hourly employees are 1,442 for Colorado, but Denver has its own rate. There are tipped employee minimum wages as well. Unincorporated Boulder County, has its own minimum wage. Not Boulder, the city. If they work in the city, it doesn't apply, but unincorporated Boulder County has a minimum wage increase that is above the state minimum wage. And Edgewater also has a minimum wage that is above the state minimum wage. So if you need additional information on that, put it in there in that Q&A. We're almost a month into the new year. So I think this is something that most of us are aware of, that we needed to provide, potentially, depending on everyone's wages, provide those increases for work performed as of January 1st of 2024. And now we can get to this final rule. This is new. This was January 9th. The Department of Labor published their final rules in regards to whether an individual, a worker, is an independent contractor or whether they are an employee. And this rule is intended really to help people make that determination. Which workers are employees, are W-2 employees, and which of your workers can be classified as an independent contractor. Now I have the link here, the website that had the final rules, where they were published. A lot of great information on there. A lot of Q&As were included that really helped me to understand what the rules are. It was very clear that employees cannot, try and say worker instead of employee, but that worker cannot choose to be an independent contractor. If under the rule, they would be an employee. Okay. So the final rule says that But again, it affirms that a worker is not an independent contractor if they are indeed, as a matter of economic reality, dependent on the employer for that work. And that's a nutshell, a lot more to it. They're saying, we're going to look at these 6 factors, and I'm going to look at each of those individually to give you a little bit more information about them. So the 6 factors is the opportunity for profit or loss, depending on managerial skills. So what does that mean? This factor considers when the worker has opportunities for profit or loss based on things like their success or failure in performing that job, whether or not the worker can determine, the wages for that job. So, when you work for a company and they are finding perhaps customers that you're going to serve, they negotiate the cost of that service. If the individual worker is negotiating the cost, then they are an independent contractor versus an employee. Whether the worker can accept or decline jobs and chooses the order and the time in which jobs are performed. Whether or not the worker engages in marketing and advertising, and whether or not the worker makes decisions to hire others, to purchase material, and or to rent space for that work to be done. So if the worker has no opportunity for profit or loss, then this does suggest that they are indeed an employee and not an independent contractor. Okay. The second factor is the investments by the worker and the potential employer. And so this one really does look at the cost of the tools, the equipment that is required to perform those specific jobs, and the cost of the labor, and how that cost is imposed for the worker. So like, for example, if it's not evident that there's capital or entrepreneurial investment, then that would indicate that that person, again, is an employee. Investments that are capital type investments, entrepreneurial investments in nature, that would indicate more of that independent contractor status. Okay. The third factor they're looking at is the degree of permanence of the work relationship. So they look at, is this for a short period of time? Is this for a project? Is this, or does this work really, it's going to go on and on. There's no end date here. There's no definitive end date. If there is no end date, that continuation of work would indicate more of an employee. Whereas if it is, for a set period of time, that work would be more likely to be that of an independent contractor. Number 4, nature and degree of control. Read that backwards. And that looks at the potential employer's control, including that control over the performance of the work and the economic aspect of the working relationship. The factors that are relevant really is the control over the worker, whether there is a set schedule, how much supervision are they going to require, and things of that nature. And that individual that does require supervision, that there is more control over the performance, that is going to be an employee versus an independent contractor. Whether or not that work is an integral part of the employer's business. This is a factor I think about a lot when I'm considering whether or not someone's an independent contractor. And it does look at, whether or not the function that the employee is performing is an integral part and a central part of what that business does. I think of it as, is this the reason that they're in business, is to provide this service? Then that individual is an employee, not an independent contractor. When it's crucial, when it's central to the principal business, that's an employee. And then the last one is this level of skill and initiative. And that really looks at the status of the worker. If the status of the worker does not use specialized skills in performing the work, and whether or not that worker is dependent on training from the employer. And where the employee brings those specialized skills, to the workplace, that is not on its own indicative of that independent contractor, but it is one of those characteristics that you're going to look at. How much training would you provide? Now, somebody can come to you with the knowledge of performing the job, but how much training you're providing them in order to perform that job for your organization? So these are the 6 factors that they have now settled on. Knock on wood. For now, I'm going to say, because this is a hot topic. This is something that has changed. The last time they provided finalized rules was in 2021, and now we have a new set from the Department of Labor. So that's kind of an overview of what they have said here. It is effective March 11th of this year, and this is really intended to align with the precedents that have been set through the judicial processes, right? It's intended to reduce the number of misclassifications, but it does not change the definition of an independent contractor under other laws, such as the IRS, the National Labor Relations Act. Those definitions continue to be separate, and an individual could qualify under the Department of Labor and not under another one of the laws. So, helpful, but not just one-stop shop. A lot of quick information again. These are the next steps for everything that we've talked about. I'm not going to go over these individually because there's a lot of information here, and I would much rather spend the time answering your questions. But again, we will send this out to you. This is kind of a checklist. Are there things that we need to do based on what you've learned today? And this will help you to make that determination. Okay. So let's go ahead and move to our final questions.
Great. We've got a lot of questions here popping up. I'm going to start with some of the more recent ones I'm seeing popping up, so it's relevant. What if they have their own business doing the same work that my company does, but they are contracted to help out? Janessa.
Well, you would have to look at those 6 factors to see whether or not they're an employee or not. So they're contracted to help out, but are they performing work that is integral to the reason that you're in business? Then perhaps they should be an employee and not an independent contractor. So just review that. These are new rules. This is as of March 11th. Those are take effect. So you may have an opportunity here to review who are your independent contractors and whether or not they need to be reclassified.
Allison's asking if you can actually go back to that last slide that has
the next steps. Sure, we can do that.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah, I'll leave this up while we're chatting. Okay. I see that Lisa has asked about the I-9 requirements. So the I-9 requirements is after they are hired. And yes, that does have a date of birth, and that's certainly okay. The reason for not knowing an individual's age during the application and hiring process is to ensure that there's no sort of discriminatory or an appearance of discriminatory acts on behalf of the employer based on age. So the state is trying to remove that factor. Don't let people know your age. Once you're hired, then you're going to provide that documentation that certainly will tell someone your age, but then they're already hired, right? So yeah, that's allowed.
All right, here's a question from Kelly. Can you have a yes or no question if they are 18 or older on an application?
I think if it's just a yes or no question, that should be acceptable because you're not asking for their date of birth. You're not asking what their age is. You're simply saying yes or no, are you 18? However, you would want to have a bona fide occupational qualification for having that requirement. Are they required to be 18? And it has to be based on some sort of regulatory requirement rather than we want everyone to be 18 in our workplace. Okay. So if there's a BFOQ, then by all means ask that question, and if there's not, then I would remove it.
Here's a question from Rachel. Do all 6 factors have to be present for the determination of IC versus EE? Or if one is met for an IC, are we okay to make that classification? For example, the degree of permanence is typically the primary factor in our decisions today.
So, but you should look at all those factors, and, it's not all yes or all no, but where do things lie? So if there's only one factor that leads you to be an independent contractor and the other 5 factors lead you to be an employee, err on the side of caution and make that person an employee. You have to look at all all of the factors, all 6. So, it's not like one weighs more than another, but you should look at all of them and make the determination that's going to be at the less risk for you as the employer. If someone's misclassified, then you're going to have to owe taxes. And if they're no longer working for you, you're going to owe your employer taxes, so the FICA on your end, and also their portion. So there's can be some pretty hefty cost in regards to misclassifications. If they are still employed, there could be overtime and things like that due, minimum wage violations. So certainly something that you want to get right the first time.
Here's a question from Lisa. Doesn't an I-9 require a form of identification that has the birth date on it, like a driver's license?
Yeah, so I answered that one a bit ago, and yes. So when they're filling out the I-9, they've been hired, so that's allowed. Yeah.
All right, here's another from Patrick. I don't think it's fair the expectation we back charge trades for willing to work in inclement weather for subsequent job cleanup costs incurred as a result. We are already a small builder and then sticking it to our hardest working trades. So maybe.
And I'm not sure what that's relating to, so I'm not sure I can answer it at this point. The Healthy Family Workplace Act says that if an employee, doesn't have childcare, or if the, schools have been closed, that the employee is able to use any accrued sick leave for that day to take time off to handle those situations. If they don't have accrued sick leave, then that is another factor that you can consider.
All right. Another question here. Can you explain the exempt versus non-exempt and how we decide who is exempt or not?
Yes, that's a separate training. It can be quite involved. There are a number of different exempt classifications that someone could fall under. Can certainly, please do when we have our Obsidian team that can help, perhaps with making that determination. But that's not something I can answer quickly right now. We're coming up on the end of our time here together. I hope that made sense, because there's so many classifications for exempt, and I'm going to say it another way. So anyone can be paid on an hourly basis. They have to qualify to be an exempt salaried employee. To be an exempt employee, they have to meet 3 factors. They have to be paid on a salary basis, meaning that they get paid the same amount every time, regardless of quality or quantity of work. They have to be paid at least the minimum. In Colorado right now, that's $55,000 per year, and they have to meet the duty tests related to the exempt classification that you are assigning to them. Okay. The duty test is the hardest. That's one that really takes some time to do an analysis of.
Okay, here's a question from Lydia. And we include a proviso that we only require a maximum of X hours per week, but not determining days as a way to control costs if we are paying an IC an hourly rate. So I'm trying to figure out.
So again, like when you're looking at whether someone's an independent contractor or an employee, you would look at the various factors, those 6 factors. Now, so that I'm imagining is regarding that control, like the schedule and such. And so you can, an independent contractor, let's say, I'm hiring a landscape. I'm an accounting firm, but I'm hiring a landscape to do the landscaping around our property. I can ask them to, find out what day they're going to come, and I can ask them to come on that day. I can't, and I can give them direction, like I want these plants cut, taken out, but I'm not going to tell them how to do that. So just saying that we want you to work 4 days a week does not necessarily mean that there's a ton of control, but you want to look at all the factors. That's just one part of it. And I'm not sure what this relates to. It says, would be nice to have a table included with the after meeting printout. So a table included of the questions, maybe, I think we can do that. Gina, so maybe this, when we send out that follow-up email with the slides and such, if we can include the Q&As, that would be great.
Yes, absolutely. Sounds good. We will do that. Here's a couple questions. Remote workers and I-9. What does that protocol look like?
Ooh, gosh. So they changed the rules back in July. They said, hey, if you have remote workers, we can no longer do remote I-9 verification that had been happening during COVID, right? So now you have to have someone review those documents and be able to sign on behalf of the company. If it's truly a remote worker, one of the fixes that you can use for that is E-Verify. E-Verify is a federal program that can be used, and they have built into that process where you can do a Zoom meeting. So the employee would send you their documents, then you have a Zoom meeting and they show you. So I'm holding up my document to the camera, say, here it is. Does this match what I sent to you? And it can be done in that manner. There's more to it than that. That's a really high level overview. There are also some organizations that, companies that are helping employers with their remote I-9 verifications. I know that we have worked with a company called WorkBright, and that they do something similar, and they will line up an adult, someone to review those documents for the remote worker so that you can have that in-person verification of the documents. So I see a question about how do we find out that information for different countries? That just off the top of my head, I just will share that Obsidian does not provide services to employees of different countries, because of the vast differences in employment law. And so that would take some research to determine whatever it is you're looking at, the rules for that country. And it says, find that info, but I'm not sure what that info reflects or is in reference to, that you would have to really be able to go in and research that, or to work with an organization that does help serve international employees.
All right, Donna, we've got 3 minutes left. So I just wanted to make sure, did you want to answer another question, or did you want to wrap up with some key points?
Well, these are on the screen right now. These next steps are what I would consider my key points. I know that we will be sending out a copy of the slides. We're going to send you a resource guide that we have created here at Obsidian. We really appreciate everyone's attendance today. And I do see that I have a couple of raised hands, and I'm not sure if those raised hands relate to questions that have been asked or what. I'm not sure. But we do want to ensure that everyone does get the copy of the slides. We're going to, again, even if we get through all the questions, we'll send out that Q&A document to show you, help you reference what was asked. That Q&A really does look at things that were put into the Q&A. So we'll have to, it may take a few days for us to be able to move questions from the chat into the Q&A, if that makes sense. But we'll, take some time to get that done. And did that answer the question, Gina?
Yes. And the raised hand was from Marina, and she's asking if we're going to send the video of this webinar, and each of you will receive the recording, and feel free to forward it on to your managers as well. Amazing. Well, thank you so much, Donna. You're truly a guru, and we are so grateful for your time and answering all the questions. Thank you to all of the attendees and participants. We hope this was helpful for you, and we look forward to chatting. We look forward to getting more questions and engagement from you for our next webinar. So look out for that, and have a wonderful rest of your day. All right.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Bye-bye. Take care.
Bye.